if there are marrying qualities between two different personalities of an architect and the love for marketing, it's easy to blend into this world.
You're able to find those nuances which are able to tie the two worlds together. There were people from different kinds of fields.
MBA was really important for this pivot, or do you think that this pivot could have been done without a formal education as well?
In my personal journey, it definitely added one of the biggest impacts.
How a day in the life of a brand manager can be
Is primarily to be talking about and understanding what is it that your brand stands for, what are the insights that you're getting from the data.
whether to stick and go deep and understand the brand insight, or would you focus on breadth, getting much more exposure in your early 2 to 3 years of your career?
So you have to be a little more wide in your approach, and as you progress in career, there are certain pieces that will appeal to you much more, and that will also resonate to your strengths.
You had the idea before the insight, or you would not trade that process, and you would definitely go for unearthing first and then the execution?
So for me, I am more of the fact that one has to start with the insight and then develop on the idea.
Marketing often looks glamorous on the outside, but on the inside, it's a lot of intricate work. It can be decoding the customers, it can be understanding and unearthing customer insights. It is also about launching new brands and also looking at legacy brands. It's actually unpacking different kind of insights to do a consumer targeting, positioning, and a segmentation. Marketing is much more than that, and it's indeed a very chaotic world. In today's episode of Brand New You, we will unpack just this. What are the different career paths in marketing? How do you stumble upon such a career path? What are the prerequisites required to have marketing? Is it possible to pivot from marketing into something else, or is it possible to come into marketing from a completely different world? Today's guest will unpack all these insights for you. She has actually lived the life of a legacy brand. She has actually pivoted her career from architecture, and she's actually built a very international career for herself. So today's guest is Tanya Sridhar, and she will be unpacking these insights for you. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the show Brand New You yet again. And in today's episode, we have Tanya as a guest. And we would love to hear more from Tanya on the world of marketing and branding, and a little bit about your career and advice for young professionals on how to unearth the space of marketing. So, welcome, Tanya, to the show.
Thank you so much, Shruti, for having me.
Yes. So Tanya, I think the listeners would love to hear a background about you and how you stumbled upon marketing and how you actually brought yourself into this creative world of marketing.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. So I'll start from the very beginning. I was born and brought up in Delhi, and from there I wanted to pursue engineering, but chances were that I actually ended up and stumbled upon architecture, and I really like that field. And I understood a lot about user psychology and all of the nuances of that. And from there, when I started my first job, it was like a 1 year stint. In that, I was given a dual role of an architect and a business development manager. And when I started doing the business development part of it, which was, in fact, marketing of sorts, because you're supposed to market an architectural firm, but you can't really do that in India. So I had to find very interesting ways to market them. And that's when I realized that I had a knack for marketing. And from there, I diverted and I went to MICA, and I did a 2 year MBA in MICA. And there on, I started my journey in Titan as a marketer.
That's really nice. I think it also takes me back to my younger days. I also started a role just after bachelor's so I did bachelor's in biomedical engineering, and post that I did a short stint as a business development manager, and I stumbled upon the world of sales and marketing, and that really drew me to actually go and pursue an MBA. So I think we have some synergy on
Yeah.
how we both went into marketing. Really nice. But would love to hear more about did it come by accident, or you really wanted to pursue that role? So if you can unearth that piece.
So the first role, the business developer and architect, it was actually firm was hiring for a BDM person, but I was an architect. So I went to them and I pitched to them that, why do you want to get an engineer to, be your business development manager when an architect can do it and I can do the double role? If there are times when you want me as an architectural expertise, then I can share that, and otherwise I'll be working on the BDM bit and getting more clients and projects. So they found that very interesting because they were essentially looking for somebody from like a generalist background, but then they thought that this is an interesting combination. And who would know better architecture than an architect, themselves? So what I did was, because they were not, like I said, in India, you're not allowed to actually market as an architectural firm. So what I used to do is I used to go to all these educational forums, and I used to go to there'll be networking sessions of, let's say, hospitals or educational institutes. And there I would be the only architect in the room. And to all the people who were there, all the ones who had more projects coming up, I would go and pitch to them saying that, if next time you need an architect for your next institute, then you should come to our firm. And because I was the only one, I was remembered. And because of that, we used to get a lot of projects for the firm. And that's how the journey began. And that's where I started realizing it's very, very interesting as a field, that you have to keep talking about your strengths and what differentiates you, what is your unique selling point. And that's when I started getting interested in marketing altogether.
Yeah. Tanya, what I hear from you is there are two different worlds. One is the world of architecture, and then the second is the world of marketing. And there is usually young marketeers today, even if they are in different other fields, like you say design or a mechanical engineer. Sometimes they hesitate whether they need to really take that next step, even if they really like it so much. Would love to hear more about what eased you to pivot from one to another. Do you really think it's really hard, or do you think that the if there are marrying qualities between two different personalities of an architect and the love for marketing, it's easy to blend into this world?
Anyone from any field can come in and contribute. And more diverse the field, more diverse the contribution you can bring to the table. So I think one has to always remember what is the strength that they bring in. For me, in architecture, we used to learn a lot about user psychology because of space, because we had to design spaces. So, how will user react to it? What will be the psychology? What are the insights that they have? What are the feelings that they have? And that, when I come to the forums and talk about marketing, it is also very similar, because in marketing also you're understanding your consumer psychology. So the psychology bit remains the same with the insights that you're bringing in, and then kind of pitching your product to them. So all of that remains the same. So you're able to find those nuances which are able to tie the two worlds together, and that's how it makes a person unique enough to bring in their contribution. So I remember in Mica, in my own batch, there were people from different kinds of fields. There was a dentist, and there was somebody who had done child psychology expertise. So all of those people would have very, very different things to contribute to in a group project. So that's what I think, that people from different fields can definitely come together.
This actually strikes me back to yesterday. So I had a chance to visit TEDx Bangalore, and I was
Oh yeah.
hearing one of the speakers speak about during the Renaissance period, they used to get two different, very different people into the room in real life and ask them to brainstorm something and build something together. And which currently in the internet world now, we have had so much internet revolution, we don't do that often. Of course, we have, things like internet wherein we can just find out a builder in SF. We can actually go out and network in multi-dimensional way, but often we lose that real life factor wherein we are actually talking to diverse people in the room.
Yeah.
And that, I think, really is very important when you must have done your MBA, right? So I would love to take you back to your MBA days and just ask you whether MBA was really important for this pivot, or do you think that this pivot could have been done without a formal education as well?
So I think it is different for different people. The answer varies a lot, and I see a lot of debate happening about whether to do an MBA, not to do an MBA. First thing is, I think it's very, very personal a choice, There are a lot of personal journeys that people have had before an MBA, and sometimes it does not contribute to them much. But coming from my background and where I was, so in my personal journey, it definitely added one of the biggest impacts. So for me, everything that I was learning in Micah, everything that I was gaining in those classrooms was extremely new to me because I had not done all of that. My like I told you, my background was in architecture. There were a lot of things about general, economics 101, accounts 101, or even things which were like talking about the consumers, like I mentioned, the inciting bit, rural marketing, so many different subjects that we learned in Micah, which I was not privy to. And I think I was very, very thankful that I got the opportunity to be a part of those classrooms and to learn from all of these professors who were experts in their fields. And I sometimes, even now, whenever there are certain things that are happening in the actual real world, when I have to do branding for real products, I go back to those basics and the frameworks that they taught, which at that time used to feel that, do you think I'm ever going to be using this in life? But I actually am using all of those things because those are the basics that will always be the foundations for anything that I'm now working towards.
Yeah, absolutely. I think marketing is not only about the creative or the consumer insight. People usually on the outside think it's a really glamorous world, but it's actually very chaotic. When you are a brand manager, and I myself was a brand manager at once, it's really difficult to unearth these insights. It's
Yeah.
very difficult to understand which campaign, when to launch, how to launch, or if a brand is already at a particular life cycle, how do you market that, and actually look at problems. Would love to hear how a day in the life of a brand manager can be, even if you've heard it from your other peers, etc. I'm sure you must have. How does it look like?
So I've been a brand manager for now 3 or more years. So every day is different. It's very different from the day that went back because there are so many learnings that we keep happening, especially now with digital marketing coming into being. Every day there's so many things that you want to keep pivoting and changing to, but the core principle of it remains entirely the same. What it is that's very, very interesting in a day of like a day in the life of a brand manager is primarily to be talking about and understanding what is it that your brand stands for. That is one thing that you keep carrying every day with you, that energy, because you're the guardian of the brand and you're the one that is the protector of the brand. There are certain things that are happening in the boardroom, and there are certain things that are happening in the minds of the consumer. So those two things need to be the same. So there are some strategies or the feelings that you want the consumer to have, that is the same. So that's how the day actually progresses. Every time you have to keep thinking that the nerve that you want of the brand or the pulse or the soul of the brand has to be the same that you are envisioning in the boardroom, and that's the same thing that is happening actually in the market. So the lesser the gap between the two perceptions, your job is done. So, and one of the big things about the day also entitles what are the insights that you're getting from the data? How are you going to be now pitching
Yeah.
your brand, or how are you going to be now changing certain aspects of the marketing that you're doing in a day-to-day basis? So that is what it is.
No, I think that's really fair. And I'm sure it is very unnerving also to work on these projects. And it's also very exciting to work on them. A common trend that I find in the young brand managers today, at least to the few people I mentor to or talk to, they really want to, in the first 2 years of their life as a brand manager, they really want to change brands. They want to go into different projects, or they just come up to the manager and say, "Hey, this is done. Can I get in maybe a next project or so, or can you give me another brand because this brand I'm not able to understand." What would be your advice or approach to young people's questions like this, whether to stick and go deep and understand the brand insight, or would you focus on breadth, getting much more exposure in your early 2 to 3 years of your career?
I think how I would want it for somebody who's kind of coming into the picture is to first be a generalist, to know a lot about, like, something about a lot of things. So you have to be a little more wide in your approach, and as you progress in career, there are certain pieces that will appeal to you much more, and that will also resonate to your strengths, and you will be able to contribute much more in it. So there you start going into the depth of it. So that is how I would want to see it. But no careers are any more linear. People are pivoting careers in between, and people are pivoting. So if brand is not resonating with you as much, or if you think you're not able to bring something to the table, one is a give yourself enough time, so that you've done justice to the role and you've done whatever you could in terms of contributing. But if still you are not okay with the brand ethos, or the brand ethos is not in value with your value system, so that is not aligned with your value system, so then I think at that time you can look at pivoting also. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Never be at a place if you're not really
Yeah.
able to put your heart into it. So that is what my advice is.
Yeah, superb. I think marketing is always about the two worlds. Usually people think it uses left side of the brain more. Some people think it uses right side more. But I think it's a very holistic approach. You need to have a deeper, wider sense into it and then go into the depths of it. But here I would really like to ask, of course, we are in the digital realm now. Digital marketing is playing a huge role. AI is playing a huge role. Would love to understand what are the new trends that you see in the marketing world today.
Of course, AI has taken everything, every industry by the storm now. And it's become a part and parcel of the work that you're doing, and the kind of, it's just made everything very agile, and the speed of activity has definitely increased. In marketing, how it is particularly affecting is that the consumers are expecting kind of a speed at the way they're consuming content. So, especially because of that, AI is able to help in that segment. Definitely, there are a lot of changes happening. The attention span is decreasing day by the day. But then it also depends on what kind of engagement that you're able to bring. So, that is also where it is coming out to be. But what people are now able to see through is a lot of false marketing, or a lot of false facade that certain brands used to have earlier. So, I think everyone is now demanding authenticity much more.
So, yesterday I was in a conference and I heard this fact that in 80 to 90% of the content on Instagram now is AI driven, right? And that is where the question of authenticity comes in. That is where the question of influencer marketing comes in. And, the skills are changing at a rapid pace as well, wherein one may have to develop their own agentic AI has come in. One has to develop a own ad campaign, and there may be ad campaign you of course use certain elements of AI to prompt certain creative. It's also spearheading the creative process of things. Any comment on what are the kind of qualities or skills that a young marketer needs to develop today in this world?
I think one of the core skills remains the same, which is to understand where your consumer is. That is something that will remain, and it'll evolve as and when the consumer is evolving, as and when newer technologies are being part of the part and parcel of life. It'll also evolve like that. Like earlier, I think 20 years back, there was no sense of digitalness as such. So a lot of the marketing, has changed from that being traditional to now being primarily digital, and that's how you see the shift in even the spends that are happening. So, one is to understand where is the consumer going, and the best thing to do is to understand what you are doing in a day. Because a lot of the brands that we are trying to work in are the brands that we as a consumer are also using. So, for instance, like I am working in Titan, and there's so many products of Titan that I was using as a consumer. So, I was a consumer first and an employee later. So that's how I think one has to see whenever they're beginning their career, that what am I doing in a day? How does anyone influence me into making a purchase? And then reverse engineer it into saying what to do. Definitely, you mentioned agentic AI, and AI in general is definitely changing, and there is a lot of lack of authenticity that happens because of AI. But I think if the tools are used, because they're all tools. So if the tools are used right, then it will definitely bring the impact that it's required to bring. If it is used in an incorrect manner, then that's what people are calling out on. If it is being used in the right manner, if it is adding, I don't know, let's say humor to the lives of the people, or adding certain kind of evoking a different emotion, which is a positive emotion, then why not?
No, I think really fair and understanding the different nuances and how to use tools correctly. It's actually at the end of the day just a tool to help you to do better. And I don't think it will take creativity out of any person because One is, of course, rows of data and understanding consumer insight, and second is putting that consumer insight into a well-developed brand core story that one will want to put out so that you can change consumer or model consumer behavior over there. This takes me also back to my MBA days where I had an international MBA and I was working with different folks from all over the world as well. And that really brought in a good level of exposure for me when I was actually working in my company. And when I also looked at your LinkedIn profile, I saw global exposure has also played a very good role in shaping you as you are today. Would love to hear, is global exposure necessary, or do you think that staying in India and having just an Indian exposure would do the fit and justice?
So, definitely global exposure definitely adds to your wider thinking. How I chanced upon it is because I was the first role that I was given in Titan when I joined was to be a product manager in the international business division of Titan. So we are expanding in international borders, and there were certain products which were required particularly for international audience. So these were called the international exclusives for the markets that we were marketing to. So it was both Southeast Asia and Middle East countries. And generally, what one has to understand is because for me in this particular role, it was important to get what are the product insights and nuances that they want. So for me, the product was a physical watch and certain collections that needed to be launched for the international market. So I wanted to get an understanding of what is culturally relevant, what is culturally correct also, and what is a big no for a particular culture. So like certain cultures don't want to wear gold as a color because they find it inauspicious. Certain cultures think that a gifting in a black box is considered negative, while other cultures are appreciating of that. So you have to understand those nuances, and for that you have to get the pulse of the market. And to understand that pulse of the market, I did happen to visit a lot of them, speak to a lot of people from those markets to actually get an understanding. But whether it is important or not fairly depends on the fact that whether you are marketing to them. So if suppose you are marketing and your product is primarily based out of India or to Indians or to a particular region in India, then it is important for you to be there. So at that time, international exposure definitely gives you a lot of trends that may happen in 10 to 15 years down the line, because trends actually follow a trajectories. They start from, let's say, an epicenter, and then it starts traveling, and then it takes forms and shapes of different places wherever it travels. But so it is important to have it, but it's not the necessary thing to have on your plate.
Yeah, I think it also brings me back when, because I had international exposure, I could contribute way better in the Indian setting as well. Also, bring the Indianness to my way of thinking and also get the international exposure to my way of thinking. So, I think it really blends in and makes you a well rounded professional.
Yes, and
Yeah.
one of the interesting things, since you mentioned India, what we were doing as a target audience for Titan, we were looking at Indians who were settled outside. But it was very interesting to find out that the Indians, how they behave in India versus the second generation Indians, let's say the Indian diaspora, which is outside, behaves very differently because of the fact that they are, subjected to certain things which somebody in India may not have been, and they are getting influenced by people around them from different nationalities, and therefore a version of those Indians are existing which are very different from the India that is the Indians that are there in India. So that nuance also one has to get, that it's not just because when we look at marketing, we start with demographic cut, and we say that somebody who's in this age group and is this certain gender and certain nationality may tend to behave. But then there's also the interest cut and also the influences that are happening. What are the key opinion leaders? How are they changing the opinions of the person? And then you derive at a cohort, and that's how you start marketing to that particular cohort.
No, I think really a good insight as to the process of marketing or branding. And in that, I have a very interesting insight or something that I have observed. So, usually, of course, there is the part of strategy and thinking wherein, we look at customer insights, understanding the persona, understanding the culturally relevant insights. And then, of course, after 4, 5 months of full understanding of this aspect, is when we come up with a campaign and then we go into the tactical plan of it. But there are also instances where you might see something and you might say, okay, I have an idea, let's do this, and I think this will change the game for the brand, and this is how we should launch a brand. Sometimes an idea comes first before a consumer insight. Have you had any such experiences before wherein you had the idea before the insight, or you would not trade that process, and you would definitely go for unearthing first and then the execution?
So I am a front bencher. I've been a front bencher all my life. So what I believe in is a lot of processes and structures and the way or your approach has to be a little systematic. So for me, I am more of the fact that one has to start with the insight and then develop on the idea. So when I was in college and in MICA, there were a lot of case study competitions that a lot of companies would come to campus and roll out case study competitions. So there'll be a problem statement by and large, and you're supposed to give them a solution to that problem statement. Even in those days, and even now today also, the biggest thing that I start with is to first understand the problem in itself.
Mhm.
What is the issue that is coming up? Finally, when you understood, okay, these are certain pain points, then trying to understand who's the consumer that we are trying to target, what are the insights that one is getting out of those consumers, then going to what are certain different ideas that can help. So, for me, the process of finding what the problem is, getting into a deep dive mode of understanding who am I going to be talking to, what are the pain points that I'm going to be solving, and then finally coming with a solution, and then how those solutions can be manifested in the form of a campaign and taken to certain platforms. So for me, that process is extremely important because the moment I center everything around the platform or an idea, then I feel that I'm not doing justice to the target that I'm supposed to be achieving or the objective that I had to actually begin with. So that justice bit has to be done because there is certain reason why that process helps you helps you think very wide and then come to a solution. The moment you start with an idea, in my view, it actually makes you, because you fall in love with your idea, then you try to force fit your way into seeing whether or not this will work for this particular cohort or this particular platform. So I think that is not the best way to go, in my view.
Yeah, and I've also seen this in my journey as a brand manager. Of course, you and I would have heard multiple pitches from creative agencies, and I think that pitch, which actually unearths an important insight and gets an idea, is always valued at the top of the table than the other one, wherein they just talk about the idea itself and they fall in love with the campaign. But I would love to understand, does it change? Does this process change when categories change, or do you think it's the same for any category that you pick up?
I think the people that we're trying to, talk to are the same. We're all humans. So at the end of the day, that's where so then it becomes very category agnostic in that sense. But what changes from category to category is also a lot of facts like if there's any cultural occasion or any seasonality, or whether you're in a low involvement category or a high involvement category, how are consumers' behavior changing and how much they're engaged in the category. So that kind of changes the way people approach a particular category. But largely, the from a problem to a solution, that framework never changes when a category changes.
Yeah, but for me, I think there's one thing that really changes, at least from the industry that I come from, are the legal guardrails. So sometimes legal guardrails, and you also, I think, mentioned in the start, in architecture, you cannot do certain elements, and same in healthcare, we cannot do certain
Yeah, yeah,
certain
correct,
things
correct.
the way it could be. So of course, we need to do everything compliantly, and that really needs to be. That is when I think your process or framework is really important, because with your process and framework, you will get 5 or 6 different tactics, and then from those 5 and 6 different tactics, you can of course look at the one or two main levers that can, change the game and capture the consumer where it has to, whether it's B2B or B2C, right? So that is there. But thanks, Tanya. It was really wonderful speaking to you about this world of marketing. Going back to the 22-year-old you, maybe, or a 22-year-old person who is trying to get into this workforce, what would your advice be in terms of different skill sets they need to garner, any courses they need to develop, or any mindset or attitude you really believe that, they should shoulder upon?
I think one of the best things, if I would start with the attitude of, widening your scope and actually accepting whatever is coming your way first, then questioning it. There are certain reasons why a certain brand or a certain company is the way they are. So sometimes, when we come with that energy, we want to change everything. But before doing that, I would ask everyone to just step back. First, get a pulse. First, get an understanding of where we are, why is it a certain way, and why was it not happening the way it was not happening. Then understand your competition. Who is the biggest competition for you in that industry, in that and in that category, and try to learn from them and understand what are certain things that are working for that particular company or that particular brand, and take nuances from that and understand why it is working from them, and if we have to do it, then why not and why should we. So I think a lot of asking questions becomes one of the biggest things, that you have to keep understanding, getting into the depth of why certain thing is happening the way it is happening, and then start giving out ideas. Because I think there's a lot of urge that when you start off, you want to give a lot of ideas, but I would ask everyone to hold back on that first, and first get an understanding, and then start asking questions. I think one of the biggest things is to keep communicating. If there is something that comes to your mind, you should communicate, you should voice out your views, because that is why people are hiring you to begin
Yeah.
with. And a lot of the generation is now moving towards, like we're marketing to Gen Zs, we're marketing to the younger consumer. So that insight of what and how a 22-year-old thinks is very important for your CMO also. So bring that perspective and think from the consumer's angle, put yourself in those shoes and try to bring those insights to the table, because that is something which I think is key nowadays, that people are also looking, and the people up the ladder are definitely looking at the younger ones. So I think they're very, very intently listening to understand and absorb how they are behaving, and getting some insights from that. So have that communication is very important. In terms of getting certain courses, definitely you can do certain courses, but I think one of the things that really helps is, if you have time, then you can also do some live projects with certain companies. So a lot of companies want to have that kind of contribution made. So, you can look for those companies and actually get your hands dirty with live work that is going to go live on their social media accounts or anywhere else, and see how the actual consumer is reacting to their work.
No, I think a lot of insights for the young people out there, and they can hear you, and they can also, of course, learn from you as to what not to do, what to do, and what are the resources that they can bank on. I would like to leave with one question, maybe one more question is, any campaign which is close to your heart as a brand manager, it need not be your companies, but anything that you felt was, this was actually a gold mine in terms of consumer insight, and this actually broke my way and changed my consumer behavior as a consumer.
Like the campaign that I really love is the Fevicol campaigns that they used to make, and even now. I think as a category, Fevicol, adhesives as a category is such a simple category. Sometimes you see that it's such a simple category to begin with, but the kind of campaigns that they've made, particularly, it just glues you,
Yeah.
literally, and you really feel happy, and you really feel that, oh my god, this is something that is such an out of box thinking that they've done, that it stays with you, and the category becomes very, and Fevicol as a brand has actually become like, nobody really knows what adhesive is, but people know what Fevicol
Favicons.
is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that is something that has always stayed with me
Yeah.
as
I think one case where brand itself has become a category.
yeah, brand itself has become a category in itself.
Yes. So Tanya would love to know more about personal branding, and I also went through your LinkedIn profile to see the type of content that you're building. Certain people do not like to go that route, but certain people are heavily into personal branding. How do you think it plays an important role today, and what steps you have taken and you would advise a person to take in this space?
I think actively or inactively, consciously or subconsciously, we are building a brand for ourselves, whether we like it or not. You know, there is certain perception being built by the way we talk, by the way we are contributing, and anything that any opinion that we're talking about. People are having certain perception. That perception is the kind of brand that you're actually building. So you can either take that in your hands and build, logically build a brand that you would want people to take with them, or you can be submissive about it and see whatever happens. So I think for me, I very actively try to build content. I actively try to help people out, because there are certain things that I have learned through my journey. And there are certain things that I have learned, certain mistakes that I have done, that I would not want anyone else to repeat if they are listening to me, or if they have seen or read my posts. So that is where I come from, and that is the reason why I wanted to build a personal brand, and for me to be able to talk on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn became that platform for me. A lot of people are now doing that content creation on Instagram as well. So for me, for one is to understand which particular platform will help build the brand for you. If it is all the social media platforms, then why not? If it is one particular, then I think you can narrow down to that. So for me, I wanted to keep my personal life personal, and the life that I wanted for everyone, with the brand that I wanted to build, was through LinkedIn. And I've seen a lot of impact happen, in real life. There was one person who came to me, in one of the conferences, which is very unrelated to architecture, but she was an architect, and she came to me and she said, "I am an architect, and the conversations that you had on YouTube and on LinkedIn, you're the reason I could convince my parents to help me pursue an MBA after architecture. So, they were not getting convinced. And because I showed your career trajectory, they are now convinced, and I am in the second year." So I was very happy to hear that story. And I realized that there is an impact also that is being made because of the personal brands that one is building. So that really, makes me feel that if suppose I want to share my journey with everyone, then I hope to create that kind of an impact. And that is why it is
Certainly.
important.
Yeah, certainly. Even for me, I've had people come back and tell me that the because of the story or the podcast that I listened to, this actually helped me to go back and think a bit differently. Or somebody got a job because of certain comment or certain post that I made. Or they're able to perform much better in work, because I think personal brand at the end of the day is also what impact you want to create. And if people come back and say that this has helped them, then that speaks volumes about the personal brand rather than it helping you yourself. Of course, it will, but it also helps other people out there. So I think it works both ways.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there are certain times when we are looking for that mentor and that guide, and we are unable to find that particular, mentor. And if you can be that mentor for somebody else, then why not?
Yeah. Yes. Cool. I think, Tanya, thanks for your time. Lovely speaking to you. And I think the people who have watched this episode would have learned a lot. So thanks again for your time and looking forward to see you again.
Thank you so much. It was great. Thank you so much.